Welcome back to the channel. Recently, Superman Son of Kal-El was canceled due to low sales. I've pretty much put that argument to rest in my mind, but that does not stop Rich Johnston from being a giant baby and being really disingenuous, making a lot of really stupid points, making himself look dumber than he already did. And here to talk to me about that is Aaron Sparrow. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. Everybody, please excuse my face.
Oh, everybody loves your face. You're a very handsome gentleman.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Speaking of not handsome gentlemen, Rich Johnston, this is what he had to say, trying to compare the cancellation of Superman Son of Kal-El to the cancellation of Robin. DC Comics canceled the Robin comic book series starring Damian Wayne, son of Bruce Wayne, and a future Batman in the lead. The launch issue for the series from 2021 was around 60,000, but estimated sales for issue 3 from Comic-Con were at 49,000. But by issue 17, it had dropped well outside the top 100. Estimated to be selling around 20 to 30,000 copies a month. Naturally, the only conclusion that sales were so low is down to the heterosexuality being blatantly forced down people's throats by way of a straight love interest for Damian Wayne in the character of Flatline. The Robin series is not a flagship character for DC Comics. Superman is, and Superman Son of Kal-El was the flagship Superman comic book for DC Comics. It being canceled after only 18 issues is a much bigger deal and a much bigger indictment on Tom Taylor and DC Comics than Robin being canceled after 17.
Yeah, I understand Rich is trying to be cutesy here, but it just doesn't work. And every time he tries to be cutesy, it just kind of like makes me throw up in my mouth. He's just one of those people that thinks that he's so clever. And, to the contrary, I mean, who would have thought that the creator of, such hits that we still talk about today, like The Avengefuls and Science Thorology, could not be that great at satire.
Yeah, it's absolutely stupid and just really disingenuous. It's very Rich Johnston. He knows that Tom Taylor and DC Comics specifically made these changes to John Kent, put him in the lead of the flagship title to generate headlines, and they did generate headlines, worldwide headlines. It was all over CNN. Every single news outlet that you could watch had a piece about John Kent, the gay Superman, coming out. Yet sales still died despite having worldwide recognition. And that is a big-time failure.
Yeah, when you have that level of promotion where like everybody in the world is hearing about it, you would think that if that was a popular idea, if that was something that people responded to, they'd be rushing out to comic book stores. But clearly they didn't. Robin didn't have anywhere near that kind of promotion, so it's an apples and oranges comparison. And Rich knows that. He's just trying to play it cute so he can, get in his little digs. Clearly people don't want heterosexual books because the book got canceled. But everybody knows why Superman Son of Kal-El got canceled. It's because it's appealing to a very niche audience, and even that niche audience rejected it because it's not very well written and it's not interesting.
Well, it's not a Superman book. That's the problem. It's an LGBT coming-of-age book disguised as a superhero comic book, and that's why people showed up. When they did the big reveal, it jumped back up in the top 5, and then it died once people realized it wasn't a superhero comic book. And you mentioning that they didn't really promote the Robin series, well, they probably should have, because all the events that are in there are leading into this Robin versus Batman series and into Lazarus Planet, which is their big event in 2023 out of the gate for Dawn of DCU. But they were so busy fluffing themselves, virtue signaling to everybody about the gay Superman, that they forgot that they had a shared connected universe and they had a story that was going to end up being important by the end of the year, and they never mentioned it to anybody.
No, not at all, because it was all about getting those internet pats on the back and the virtue signaling is definitely the term for it. It really boggles my mind that even in this day and age, people don't understand that you can have these characters and you can have diverse characters, but they need to be characters who happen to be A, B, and C. You can't put A, B, and C as the only thing that's about the only thing that's even remotely recognizable about these characters. What can anyone tell me about John Kent besides the fact that he's bisexual? And let's be honest, he's not even really bisexual. He's never going to have a relationship with a female character, unless they hear this and they decide that they're going to show us. But, once a character comes out as bisexual, they're essentially gay. And that's just the end of it. That's the end all be all of the character. There's no interesting story to tell besides the coming out story. And I don't really think that many people are that interested in that, especially within the superhero genre.
Yeah. Once the superheroics take a back seat to like the personal drama, and that's what's driving the story, people obviously are going to check out. But that didn't stop him from doing this stupid story and talking about and trying to equate Superman to a Robin series. There are literally 2 Superman comic books being delivered from DC right now. Superman, well, I guess there's 3. There's Superman, there's Action Comics, and Batman Superman World's Finest. There are 25 to 30 new Batman-related comic books every single month, and there are like 5 or 6 different versions of Robin out there right now, including a gay one, so they couldn't make Damian Wayne gay to get some headlines for it. Comparing John Kent's Superman to Robin failing is just, it's like so lowbrow. People don't really check this guy and call him a dickhead whenever he says this stupid stuff.
People definitely call Rich Johnston things behind closed doors. I've been in several different companies. He's not liked amongst comic professionals. They largely hate him, but he gets by because he is willing to carry water like this when you need to carry water for the message. Rich exists in this really interesting space where no one really likes him, no one really respects him. A lot of people really hate him, and I personally don't have any beef with him. I just don't really interact with him. But a lot of people have, and a lot of people don't like him. And even guys like Mark Waid, who once sent me an email saying that Rich Johnston was the scum that forms on top of pond scum, will still use him periodically. He used him when he was in his big lawsuit with Richard Meyer. He went out there and he did a big interview with Rich Johnston, even though he hates the guy. But it's, one of those things, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, at least temporarily. So that's pretty much how Rich gets by in the industry, I think.
He made another article talking about how the Daily Mail had a headline about this cancellation, and he said, their headline was later amended when someone pointed out that John Kent, son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane, has been portrayed as a young teenage bisexual man with expressed feelings for both Saturn Girl and his boyfriend Jay Nakamura rather than gay Superman. Once again, very disingenuous. Yes, when the character was initially aged up and put in Legion of Superheroes, there was a romance between young John Kent and Saturn Girl, and they even shared a kiss. I remember that being in the story. But he has shown no interest in that character or any female character at all since coming out as bisexual. He's just a gay character now, and people acting like he isn't, and acting like Tom Taylor didn't just do that so he could have some headlines to generate and a tweet or two to put out on coming out day are absolutely lying to themselves.
Oh, yeah. The Saturn Girl stuff happened before, you might as well point to, Bobby Drake's long relationship with Opal in the pages of X Factor, or any of the other heterosexual relationships he had up until that point, as saying that Bobby is bisexual. It's like, no, all that's erased once the writers decide that they want to get a GLAAD award and that, they need to turn an existing character gay instead of creating a compelling new gay character. It's pretty disingenuous to try and, put that out there. But, this is Rich Johnston we're talking about. Disingenuous is his middle name.
And if they really wanted to portray the character as bisexual, and we don't see a lot of bisexual characters in superhero comics outside of really Constantine, I guess, there could have been a love triangle where John Kent was torn between Jay Nakamura and maybe a female character. But that was never going to happen because that would ruin the Pride covers and everything, because these two characters are basically variant cover models now. They're not even superheroes.
No, the book isn't made for anybody to read. The book is made for people to hold up and take an Instagram picture with, and say we did it in Pride Month hashtag. None of these books are really made to be read, which is the unfortunate part, because you could actually put the work in and tell some stories. The other problem is that none of the characters are become that likable. Like, it's like everything is stripped out of them, all the personality, anything that makes them relatable. The only thing that makes them relatable is to a very niche audience that just wants a character that is gay, and then that's it. That just gay is their only trait. It's really kind of like disheartening because Jay Nakamura is an insufferable character. I can't stand him. I can't stand him. And that has nothing to do with his sexuality. It just has to do with the fact that he's written so poorly and he's just so boring.
And it started from day one on the series. I talked about it here, but apparently Rich Johnston wasn't paying attention to that. This is what he had to say about YouTubers. The usual YouTube mini brains who denigrated the series' existence for no other reason than John Kent, son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane, was portrayed as a bisexual young man with a boyfriend, have crowed about the cancellation. That is absolute bullshit. I reviewed issues number 1 and number 2. That was long before we ever knew the character was going to come out as gay. I hated issue number 1, and I hated issue number 2 even more. And I pointed out plain as day every single thing wrong with Superman, son of Kal-El, from the absolute inception of the comic book before the character ever came out as gay. But that's not a part of the story, right? The fact that I reviewed it beforehand and I pointed out everything wrong with the character.
No, but I mean that the fact is that writers like Tom Taylor, people like Rich Johnston, they're using minorities as a shield. So to kind of like protect the narrative, to protect this book, you can't criticize it. You can't criticize the writing. You can't criticize the art. You can't criticize anything about it because how very dare you? Because it's about a marginalized group. That's the shield that people are using, and it's ridiculous, and I reject it. And for Rich Johnston, a guy who I don't think anybody particularly ascribes a high level of intellect to call YouTubers mini brains, that's just really sour grapes, isn't it? Because your low end YouTubers reach their influence goes far beyond Rich Johnston's, and he can't stand that. So that's just a petty shot across the bow for one man's insecurity and jealousy. And I wouldn't even put. I think we've already put too much emphasis on talking about it.
The problem with the series wasn't that John Kent came out as gay. That was an obstacle that they had to overcome, but they had failed long before that issue ever came out. Issue number 1 was bad. Issue number 2 was damn near unreadable. The character John Kent was not the John Kent people grew up with, that people loved in Super Sons under Peter J. Tomasi. He took a weird turn. He was grandstanding, talking down to his father about how he'd never saved anybody and how he wasn't doing right by the world. And Clark Kent was like, I've never really felt like I'm from Earth, so I can't really do much here. It's going to be on you. And after that, people checked out. They got the headlines. On issue number 5, he came out as gay. People showed up. They realized the comic book still sucked, and they stopped reading again.
Yeah, well, they speculated on it. They thought, this is going to be a big deal and this book's going to go for money. So people jumped in and shops ordered high, and all the media attention was out there. So they thought there was going to be this big influx of people into comic book stores. But you can still go into comic book stores and that issue's still sitting on the shelf, all those extra copies that were ordered. So yeah, it sold to comic shops, but it didn't sell to end readers. And that's the big problem is now the shops are stuck with all that. They're stuck with all that inventory. So what do? They cut the later issues. They keep cutting. And then the book drops and drops and drops because nobody's reading it. And then it gets canceled. And then we get articles like this.
This isn't the first time that Rich Johnston has tied himself in knots trying to defend the undefensible in the comic book industry. Actually talked about it with Captain America and Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on that character. Definitely check this out. Rich Johnston is a disingenuous douchebag. That's all there is to it. If you don't see it here, there's also a link in the video description.